In this episode, we're chatting about network scanning. You'll learn about 3 different types and why we use them, coming up next.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Welcome to IT Pro TV. This is CEH version 11. I'm Kathy Chambers. This is Daniel Lowry.
It's me.
Let's get started.
Let's get started.
We're talking about network scanning.
Yeah, well, we're going to, right? It's
Yeah.
the idea behind this particular episode.
That's the title, so now we have to talk about it.
Yeah, that's the way it works, right? You're absolutely right. Network scanning, a very important part of performing any kind of assessment against a target network. If you want to work as an ethical hacker, this is one of the foundational pieces of knowledge you need to acquire and be aware of. And we need to understand exactly the concepts and the theory behind network scanning as well. So that's what we're going to cover today.
I would imagine there's more than one type, right?
Yeah, there's totally more.
Yeah, it's never that simple.
Yeah, there's some stuff that we're going to have to go through with that. But let's get started with the idea of what is network scanning. Let's lay the foundation for that specific thing. And it's a great question, right? Pertinent to what we're talking about. Network scanning is the idea that we are going to gather information about our target either system or network at large so that we can better understand what's going on there and maybe even discover some things about it. It's all about information gathering. That's why we scan. I want to learn about the environment that I'm going to start to attempt to hack into at some point in time. And if I don't know about that stuff, then I'm gonna have a hard time doing that. So that's the importance and why we do this and what network scanning technically is.
Yeah, so what are some ways that we can do this?
All right, so we got 3 ways that we're going to cover today, and these are the ways that are presented by EC Council for your CH exam. We have network scanning, right? This is more commonly referred to as host discovery, the finding of targets on a target network, right? We also have port and service scanning, which is looking for what ports are open, and if a port is open, is there a service running on it, which usually is the case. And what service is that, right? And then we have vulnerability scanning as well, which is now that I've discovered some technologies on a target, is there any vulnerabilities that are known and associated with that target? And I want to get a little deeper into the details of that, gather that information as well.
Why would we use a host discovery?
Yeah, host discovery. Let's start there. Great place, right? Host discovery is a wonderful thing because, like we said before, if we don't know that a target exists, well, then it's you're gonna have a hard time doing anything with it, right? So I've got to look at the network and see where my targets are and start to document that process. Okay, I found a target here, I found a target there, IP address and things of that nature associated with that. So I get a list of usable targets that I can then start to leverage. So this is the important part of that. So it's used to discover live hosts on the network. It's also used to discover the operating system that they're running. It's typically a part of that, that host discovery scan. Hey, not only is there a host, but I can kind of discern what operating system is running using various and sundry means. We'll get into that as we dive further into scanning and doing those activities. But that is the real meat and potatoes of a host discovery.
How long does something like this take? I mean, is this a long time or does it take as long as you need it to take to find whatever host you're trying to target?
Ultimately, it's going to be your mileage may vary.
Yep.
Because if I've got 1,000 hosts on a target network, then it's going to take that much time to scan for 1,000 different hosts. If I have 12 hosts on a target, that's going to take less time than it would in my 1,000. So it just depends on the environment, but it's a really good question because you think, oh, maybe this is I can set this time away and that's my host discovery part. No, you're going to want to get a good idea of the target network first. If you are engaged in something like a penetration tester, things of that nature, doing ethical hacking, usually that's, in some specific types of engagements, that information will be given to you so that you can kind of budget for that time.
Sure. So you had mentioned, I think it was port service.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So what are some of the goals behind that one?
Yeah, great question. Ports and services. This is probably one of my favorite things because this is where I start getting excited, right? This is where I go, ooh, there's a port. Oh, and it's running this service. Oh, I can actually find my way into this. So this is the importance of a port and service scan. So I want to find out what ports are open and what services might be running, right? And through that, this is why I get excited. If I see port 80 is open, I know that this is most likely a web server that's running because typically port 80 is associated with web services. That means there's a website. Maybe they've made a mistake in that website, and I can capitalize on that mistake and gain some access sensitive areas of that way. Who knows, right? It is an open door. The sky's the limit when it comes to that. So when I start seeing those ports showing up on my port scans, seeing the services that are being run there and getting more detail, I can then start to prioritize what I'm going to go after. What do I think is going to be the easiest lift? Maybe there's some low-hanging fruit. And it all comes through doing these ports and services. So we're looking for which ports and services are running on these target hosts and discover versioning information about them as well. And that's really what gets the blood flowing, because if I know this has an FTP service running on it, and that's an old FTP service, I'm aware of that. I've been around the block a couple of times. I've seen that FTP service before. It's chock full of holes. That's, like I said, I get my blood pumping. It's a lot of fun because I know I'm probably in for an easy win.
Daniel, I am so excited that you're excited.
It's fun. It is.
So if I see you getting very excited at your desk, I'll be like, oh, there's Daniel finding those ports again.
He is also
He must be having a great day.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. If you see me happy, I'm having a really good day. So
I think our last one was vulnerability.
Vulnerability,
It's so hard
which is
to
a
say.
difficult word to say.
You just say it for me.
Say it. Vulnerability.
There you
right?
go.
I've
There you
got
go.
that one down. The vulnerability scan. This is the apex predator of our scanning types, because I say that there's probably other scan types that might be, but for me, like for our intents and purposes today, because this is what is going to gather the information of whether or not there is a known vulnerability that is associated with our target in some way, shape, or form. This could be the fact that, hey, that FTP server we just talked about is running a super old version. Is there a vulnerability associated with that super old version? Well, if I do a vulnerabilities check or a scan, it will look and see, based off of a database of known vulnerabilities, hey, I see that you're running this older version as FTP. Did you know that there are vulnerabilities associated with that? Well, I did not know that. Thank you so much, Scanner, for informing me, right? This is all about information gathering, an enumeration of the targets themselves, and gathering that information to ourselves. So we go, oh, okay, well, now I got a good way to start to prioritize. And vulnerabilities, just to make sure we're clear, these are the possible weaknesses, right? Or the weaknesses that we find that are possibly exploitable. That's a really good way to put it. So we've discovered a weakness. There very well or may not be a way to exploit said weakness. But if we don't know that they're there, we're not going to get anywhere anyway. So we got to do vulnerability scanning to start looking for the weak links in the chain of armor.
Sounds like a fun process.
It is. It's a good time had by all. I know I enjoy it. You out there,
And you will too.
Yeah, this is the first step to actually doing some real hacking, and this is super important for all of us to do, because if you skip this, you might miss that key thing that gets you where you want to be, which is, hey, I found some really bad vulnerabilities. We need to mitigate that, and giving that information to your clients or your company and saying, I found something that's pertinent that could be a problem. And if you're doing ethical hacking, penetration testing, not only that, but I was able to exploit those weaknesses. And that's a real issue. We really need to take a look at this and start to figure out ways to solve that problem.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us today, Daniel. So we went over 3 different types of network scanning. We had host discovery, port service, and vulnerability. Huh, I got it right that time.
Good job.
I nailed it. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you guys again soon.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.